Welcome to Reddit Aliens. Peoples whose houses are haunted. What is your story? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Grew up in a haunted house. We had this toy car that would move on its own with no batteries in it. And I mean move like 30 feet and go in circles. Sometimes it would just move for hours. My entire family saw it, and we even had uncles and aunts come over to see it. In that same house, we got the hardwood floors done, and we woke up to these 3 bird-like claw marks all over the floor, looking something like this, all over the house. My mom bought a plant once too from some garage sale. When she brought the plant home, I had a dream about breaking the plant, and in the dream my mom was angry that I broke the plant. When I awoke, my mom said she saw a figure standing beside her bed all night, and the plant had been destroyed as well. She tossed the plant out, and that figure or dream never happened again. It was very common to see black shadows in broad daylight, and I remember one night when I was like 4, I woke up to 2 giant glowing red eyes inches from the front of my face. Yeah, that house was haunted as F. A few shorter stories. Our last house, when our daughter was around 2, she was in her room talking. We went in to see what's going on. She was standing in her crib, looking at the far corner of her room. We asked her what she's doing. She said, talking to the man. We asked, who? She pointed to the corner and said, the man. She said a name, but I can't remember what it was. Then she just started talking about something else entirely and acted like it didn't happen. What the F? My mother-in-law's house, she says that she saw some Civil War soldiers that walk her hallways occasionally. She's not afraid of them, and she feels badly for them, but they never bother her or anything in the house. They're just kind of wander. My sister-in-law's old house, her kids were friends with the neighbor's kid. The neighbors went skiing, and apparently he had an accident while skiing and died. Soon after his parents moved from that house, they would see a young boy walking around their house late at night, and they swear it's the neighbor's son, and he's lost because his parents moved. My house was haunted for about a week by a cat. Our old neighbors had a beautiful white cat that seemed to live primarily outside. She loved our family, even my idiot dog that would try to hump her. All she wanted in life was to get into my house, and if I weren't deathly allergic, I would have let her in and stay forever. One day, I thought I saw her in my living room, but when I looked, she wasn't there. This went on for a week. I'd see her in different parts of the house. Not just me, but everyone else would have sightings, but always for a split second or out of the corner of your eye. We all were trying to figure out what was going on, but then it stopped, and we didn't see her in or out of the house for a few days. I finally went and asked the neighbors if she was okay, and found out she'd been hit by a car and died around the time we saw her in the house. I'm not sure if my house is haunted, but every now and then I'll see shadows passing by. Things will fall on their own, although sometimes I believe it has to do with misplacement, and I even saw a man walking past my kitchen while looking at me and disappeared out of my sight. From time to time, I'll even see small shadows, as if those were of cats. I used to live in a rented apartment. It's a furnished apartment, and every furniture there was antique, but in perfect condition, so I really liked it except for the bed. The box spring underneath had a large stain, which could be either coffee or blood. It bothers me a little bit, but I didn't replace it since it would not be in direct contact with my skin when I slept. During that time, I would find random handprints on mirrors and walls. I brushed it off as my own handprints, but they were tiny and didn't match the size of my hand at all. I had no explanation for it. Later on, I learned from a neighbor that before I moved in, a teenager committed suicide by shooting himself in the apartment I was renting. I don't live there anymore, but whenever I sleep in hotels, I would still find random tiny handprints. I hope it's just a coincidence. Well, I mean, it could be a coincidence, or it could be that a ghost attached itself to you. My office is haunted. I did some research on the building's history and am convinced it is the ghost of the original architect. He didn't get credit for his work for many, many years, and the link between him and the building is difficult to find, but I dug something up in the town archives at the library that links him to the project. Strange noises and weird things going on all the time in that building, mostly when it's just 1 or 2 people in there though. Classic haunting. Not my house, but I am a doctor currently in residency, and our call room used to be near the old ICU at our hospital. There have been rumors that it's haunted, and there have been a few times when I was falling asleep in there that I'd swear I'd heard whispers or a voice. Then again, I work 24-hour shifts and 80-plus hour weeks when it's really busy, so I could just be partially delirious from lack of sleep. I've always had spooky things happen around me no matter where I live. The activity is relatively light. I can go weeks or months with nothing, but every so often, something will happen that I can't explain besides the ghost did it. Objects moving, doors closing, a painting falling off a wall at an angle that was not natural, the stove turned on by itself when I was standing next to it. A radio also turned on in front of me too. When my sister was staying here months ago, she said her daughter's toys were moved around, and one day she came home to all of her bathroom cupboards open. Sometimes I hear noises floating around my bathroom or room too. One night, a while back, I was laying in bed trying to sleep. The house was silent. The door was cracked open. With no warning, I hear a rush of literal footsteps sprinting down the hall to my room, and then my door hurled open forcefully. No animals or people came in. They were already on my bed. It's been fun, and that's the only this particular house. I've had more stories in past places I've lived in. Honestly, I'm not freaked out. I'm fascinated by it and wish I had more frequent activity. It was built on a spirit line, so many spirits that traveled through or were passing through the forest got trapped or stayed there. So there were many different types of ghosts. Happy old ladies that played with the young kids, chill ghosts that would just walk around or sit next to you, and some were mean and perhaps even evil. Everyone has felt something there. My siblings have heard people run up the stairs extremely fast when they were alone. This thing was moaning or crying and banging on the walls as it ran up from the basement. My siblings ran and locked themselves in their room and called my grandfather. He picked them up, and when driving away, they looked at the windows and saw something staring at them. A work crew was hired to renovate the house. They all talked about how spooky and creepy the basement was. One day they all ran out and refused to work there anymore. They quit the job and just said it was haunted. They didn't want to specify anything. Lots of creepy stuff there, but now my cousin lives there, and his family likes the place. My current house is definitely not haunted, but the home I grew up in definitely was. To be honest, it was cursed before it was even built. When they were building this house back in the early 70s, it was about 3/4 finished and a tornado came through and tore it down, which is very odd because the house I grew up in was on top of a tall hill, and tornadoes typically cannot get anywhere near there. Anyway, the builders got their money from the insurance company and started building it again. It was about 3/4 finished and it burned to the ground under mysterious circumstances, which is very odd because it was the only house in the entire neighborhood that happened to, but crazy stuff happens here. So they got the insurance money and they started building it again. They were putting the finishing touches on it when a tornado came through and tore it down to the ground, once again missing all of the other houses in the entire neighborhood and only destroying this one house. I'm guessing the builders were either incredibly persistent or the insurance was worded in such a way as that they had to build it again because they built the house again and this time it stayed up, much like the Monty Python joke. But if you think building a home on cursed land and having to go through several stages of grief and misery and stress was the end of the story, you would be wrong. We were the second owners of that home. I do not know what happened to the first owners, but weird things happen there quite often. One dark and rainy night, I was downstairs doing laundry, and I felt rather that heard a dark presence over my right shoulder. I turned, and it was a man in a trench coat who had absolutely no color to his body, standing next to the HVAC system, and as soon as I saw him, he walked around the other side of the HVAC system and out of my line of sight. I chased after him, and he was gone, and, freaked out, I ran upstairs and told everyone there's a man in the house, and no one believed me. Finally, after I had freaked out long enough, they went and checked, but there was no one down there, and no one to be seen. Later on, my sister started saying how she would get woken up in the middle of the night by a dark-haired woman wearing all white, who would be sitting at the foot of her bed, holding her feet down, crying and praying and crying and praying, and she would be so terrified that she couldn't move. I don't know if the haunting stopped, but I do know that the house is mysteriously cold at all times, and that things tend to break down in that home at an abnormally fast rate. Whatever is there has since left me alone, but I'm sure it walks up and down the halls and up and down the stairs and into each of the bedrooms every night. Whatever curse is on that land, whatever curse is on that house, it can only do anything to you while you're there, and I've been gone a long, long time. My grandparents built my house. Both my uncles passed in that house as well as my grandpa. There were times my parents would be out of town, so it's just me and my grandma, and I would hear steps coming down the stairs. I would go out of my room to check and there will be no lights on. My grandma can't physically walk up or down the stairs. There's lots of times I hear something walking around the house. I would go to check and there's no one there. I know the housing market is tough right now, but how many signs do you need to get out of that house? I'm sort of superstitious. I had a black cat. I was born on Friday the 13th. After my cat passed, all of a sudden, really obnoxious shit started happening around my house. Things go missing, things get moved, I see shadows around other rooms. I seriously believe that my old cat kept energy. Small backstory. I picked him out of a litter of 4. 2 boy cats were black, short hairs, and 2 female long hair. He was the only one that was fully black as pitch. I had him for 14 years. This is the first time in my house since he left that I've had weird stuff happen. Not my story, but creepy one I heard today. This lady moved into a house recently and didn't really get it expected first. Nothing was really working when she moved in, and she can't really get rid of this smell. She thinks it's coming from inside the walls. To be fair, she's not the smartest and bought the house from the homeowner's friend who's a realtor. Kinda shady and too convenient. I got a weird feeling when hearing her story because she can't get rid of the smell, and she said that the friend of the realtor and his grandma lived there the year before. I got a feeling it wasn't just an animal, and she said she hoped it wasn't a body too. She's been having nightmares every night, and I don't understand why she would just buy an air freshener and not call the police or exterminator or something. I just think there's too many red flags, and it's haunted. I don't think my house is haunted because it may all be in my head. When I was around the age of 11, I would see this tall silhouette of a man. He would usually appear in my room when I tried to sleep. He would stand in between my closet and room door. I would be blocked in my room, no way to get out. I just had to shut my eyes and fall asleep as fast as I could, which was hard in that circumstance. He didn't really do anything or move, he only watched. I only saw him once here, but one time I was looking at my iPad in the dark while in my playroom. I hear my mother call me for dinner down the hall, so I look up. There he was, standing in front of the right door of the double door to my playroom. I was scared shitless. All I could do was avoid him as I sprinted out of the left door. I tell my family once I get to the kitchen, and none of them believe me. Needless to say, I never went in there alone at night again. The last time something weird happened in that room was when I was home alone upstairs. I forgot to mention there's a piano that belonged to my grandmother in the playroom. While I was upstairs, I hear the piano start playing. It wasn't a pretty song, but it wasn't slamming down on the keys. I just had to lay in my bed, too scared to move. I still see the man to this day. Look, I've been known to procrastinate too, but lady, please call an exterminator or the police.